Okay, what's up guys? How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Rick Scale RC and part 2, or should I say just a slight update on what's going on here. We got a little bit of work to do, but not much. We're still waiting on some things. My frame rails came in. Super excited about that. However, found them on eBay. Cheap. $10 for a set of frame rails. Now all the other ones I looked at were like between, I think the cheapest I saw was maybe $25, and then they went all the way up to $50. These were 10. I'm like, sweet man, I'm getting them. Even if I don't use them for this project. An extra set of frame rails, metal. Great. So I ordered them. They're aluminum. Was not expecting that. I even went back and I checked the ad and it just says metal frame rails. Doesn't say anything about them being aluminum, but then again it doesn't say anything about them being steel or stainless steel. So a little bit of a lesson learned. But it's really not that big of a deal because, you know, after I had posted the last video and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, whenever people notch or Z the rear of the frame, they don't rebuild the frame with frame. The back section or just the notch section is usually like tubing, you know, like 1.5 inch tubing, or sometimes they'll do it with square stock, but it's never frame rails. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. It was just like, but I'm glad I thought of it before we did any welding. I mean, not that we were going to be doing any welding with these, but I'm glad it came to mind. So eventually, once we're ready to do that, I'm gonna get some tubing. I have some tubing here. This is 1/4 inch solid rod, and this is actually for another project. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of that later on. But the other thing that came in was the axle. Nobody wanted to guess what it was, I guess. But it's a Dana replica. You know, it's like a Dana 60 axle housing. It is all steel. Or I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's heavy. I think it's steel. I don't think it's aluminum or some kind of like billet. I'm not sure, but it's cool. So that's what we're going to be using in the back. I was real excited to get that in. So we have that in now, and then I'm still waiting on leaf springs. I really can't do anything about the front without a leaf spring because I need that leaf spring to do any type of mock-up. And then for the back, no, I don't think I'm waiting on anything for the rear. Just waiting to get to that step of the build. I'm not really there yet. But for right now, what I wanted to do was, with this cross member, this is still the stock cross member that has a little bit of a drop down to it. But with this installed in its factory location, with the cab mounted on the frame all the way up against the spur gear, it sits on there crooked. You know, it's not flat on the frame rails. So my goal is, or my plan, when I switch over this motor and transmission to the new cross member and install it, I want to move it forward about 1/2 inch. Just to make things go a little smoother, I have done a little bit of work off camera. These holes are all marked out and drilled. And then here is the flat cross member we're going to use. And basically what I did was I just took my most forward hole, measured up 1/2 inch, and then marked everything out. You know, and I did that in the rear too. So spur gear in the back. Alright, we work this side. You know, this week I've been sitting here at the workbench staring at this thing constantly, trying to come up with ideas, making sure I'm doing things the best way that I can do them. And the more I looked at it, the more I'm not happy with that front end. It's cool, but it's a semi-truck axle. You know, for retrofitting and making things work, I guess, you know, for something that you can buy off the shelf or, you know, out of a catalog or online or, you know, wherever, that's cool. You know, it is nice that you can buy a solid axle and have something to put under, you know, your hot rod or rat rod build for a little bit of realism with a solid axle. But for me, it just wasn't doing it for me. It was big, it was bulky. My other issue is with my ride height set in the front. Now this is without the rear axle in it. But with my ride height set, you know, pretty much where I wanted it to be, the frame was still sitting on that axle. So I'm like, you know, to mount a leaf spring in there as well, it's just, there's just not enough room. It's just not going to do what I need it to do. So I started brainstorming and doing lots and lots and lots of internet research. And I think I'm going to just go ahead and build a front end for it. I've already got some things in the works. You know, it was kind of one of those trial and error things, so I didn't do too much filming on it. Kind of wanted to see how far I could get it and if it was going to work. And I think I'm far enough with the designing part of it. I think it's going to work. There's not a lot of people online that are doing it either. It's not like, you know, I could pop up somebody's YouTube channel and copy their ideas or their design for a solid front axle for a rat rod. You know, there's only like a handful of people on YouTube that are even messing with RC rat rods. So, you know, I found a few that were building their own front ends, and I kind of took little bits and pieces from each thing until I came up with my own plan. And I gotta say, I think it's a pretty good plan. Right. Oh, look at that. It even goes too much, or too far forward now, so I have plenty of wiggle room now. And now that cab is sitting like, you know, it's perfectly in line with that flat bottom part of the frame rail. And that's what I was shooting for. You know, before it was kind of doing this thing, and I just wasn't happy with it. So now we got it like that, and we even got some more room. So that worked out really well. I'm happy with that. Also too, you know, before it kind of sat back like this and these frame rails shot up, and it just, I don't know, that looked kind of funky to me. I think with it sitting like this, it looks a little better. That's awesome. I'm happy with that. throw these aluminum frame rails. I'll use the flat part in the back. Yeah, if I could get it going with that ride height, that'd be great. I think it could even come up a little bit, and I'd still be happy with it. Yeah, that looks great. Hopefully I don't run into any other issues. I did have the rear axle kind of mocked up back there. And I did check, you know, like drive shaft length and stuff like that, just to make sure I wasn't screwing myself over, and that still seems to fit nice, so yeah, that's not going to work. But yeah, so that still seems to fit nice. Will be good. Alright. Cross member relocated. We also swapping that out. Now those rails are the most bottom part of the car. This cross member, it didn't hang down a lot, but it did hang down. And when you're building something like this and you're trying to get it that low to the ground, every little bit helps. That'll probably be can't even talk. That'll probably do it for the work for this week. Like I said, I'm still waiting on a lot of stuff. I might have shot out part 1 a little early. I should have waited till I got some more stuff in. Just so excited to get this thing going. But if it gets too crazy with waiting for parts, and I think what we might do is I want to build a rear bumper for this. So we might do that to fill in some time. There's also a styrene drop bed in works for this too. So I can get a full bed, and we're going to do some custom brackets underneath here and mount some different shocks. So I'll be running, 2 different shocks. We'll run a smaller set in the back, and we're going to tilt them in. It's nothing new. People are doing it. There's other videos on it, but that's what I'm going to do. And just to make room so we can get the frame rails flat and get rid of the, the shock hoops, and we can get that bed, get a drop bed going on in there. So maybe we'll do that to fill in some time. We'll see how things go. If the parts start coming in sooner than I'm thinking, maybe we can just keep going with the hot rod. But enough about that. So, this is my idea for the front end. And this part really isn't my idea per se. I have switched it up and done a few things differently just to make it my own and do what I feel would improve the design. What I've seen someone do is they took these axial, these are your front 4-wheel drive spindles, your outer spindles, the hubs. And I've taken this 1/4-inch solid rod and I've drilled and tapped the end of it. And then we got screws going in from top and bottom, and as you can see, it spins nice and free, and these screws are locked down tight. There is a brass bushing in there, so everything is cinched down super tight and snug. It's not going to come apart, and then this is still spinning nice and free. Same on this one. And then what I'm doing now is I'm building the center section. This was my first failed attempt. This is obviously going to get cut like here, and then these will get welded on the ends. But what happened was I ended up running out of gas, and I wasn't able to heat these things up as hot as it should have been to keep my bend as local you know, you heat it up and you keep your heat where you want to make your bend. You know, that it'll glow for a 1/4 inch, and you can make your bend right there within that 1/4 inch and make a nice tight bend. But without the heat, trying to bend it, it wants to flex everywhere. You know, it doesn't want to just bend right here. It's trying to pull it here and pulling it here. So I ended up doing this all, you know, by hand without any heat, and it's pretty much scrap. It didn't come out at all the way I had planned. It doesn't even fit the original design. This is the original design. What I did pretty much was, you know, you can kind of see it in the back lightly, is I traced this front end. And then I made the adjustments. You know, I kind of drew over top of that what I wanted it to look like, and then build it. But what I was talking about, see, without the heat, without being able to heat it up properly and keep that heat where you need it to make that bend where you need it, it just didn't work out for me. So we'll get some more gas, and we'll make another attempt at that. Because I built a small jig. I took a piece of 1x and I drew out the front end on it, drilled some holes, and I put some dowels in so that I could, you know, I needed it to be perfect on both sides. So, and without the heat, it just wouldn't bend the way I needed it to. I mean, anybody who's done anything like this knows what I'm talking about. You can't make that bend and keep it where you need it without heat. It tries to pull it from, you know. Enough said. I'm going to quit babbling. You guys know what I mean. But that's where we're at. Here's, you know, I got more. So we're going to make another attempt at this. But the goal is, once I get this bent into the shape that I need it to be in, these will just get welded on. And then we'll have to make some radius arms for it. And what else? Radius arms for it, and a shock mount, because I am putting shocks on it too. So that's the other thing. I was able to finally get some shocks. I've been scouring the internet trying to find shocks for it. I finally found some short little 40mm internal spring shocks, so I think they'll look, you know, scale. That's about it. I can't think of anything else. I got some cool little goodies coming for it too. Some nice little add-ons, little fun projects for it once we get, you know, the bulk of it done. That's about it for today. That's all I got for you. Catch you guys next week with a part 3, and maybe we'll be putting a front end on if some leaf springs come. Who knows? We'll see. But till then, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Take care.